I'm going to make a marine anchor using a 5-gallon bucket, about 75 pounds of concrete, and 5/16 galvanized hardware. I'll list everything I used in the description below. I'm going to use this eye bolt as my anchor point. To set it in the concrete, I'm going to put on a series of washers and nuts that will cause the eye bolt to bite into the concrete that surrounds it. You might be able to get away with just one washer and a pair of nuts. I chose to use two with some space between to spread out the load on the eye bolt and on the surrounding concrete. Note that I'm not an expert. If you're going to build an anchor like this, you should seek advice from a qualified professional. This video is for entertainment purposes only. I actually made 2 anchors, and on the second one I decided to bend the bottom of the eye bolt as some extra insurance to prevent it from possibly unscrewing itself from the bolts later down the line. This might not be necessary, but it's pretty easy to do. Let's face it, any day you can use a sledgehammer is a good day, even if it's a mini sledge. Now that everything is where I want it, I can tighten it down. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. Okay, let's get to mixing up the concrete. I bought 3 50-pound bags of concrete at Lowe's. I'm making 2 anchors, so I'll use 1.5 bags of concrete per anchor. That's about 75 pounds per bucket. I probably could have gotten 2 80-pound bags instead of 3 50-pound bags. The 50-pound bags are easier to lift though. I'm going to pour and mix in stages so I can ensure everything gets mixed thoroughly. My little helper here is measuring out some water for me. I'm following the instructions in the bag to set up my mix with the correct water ratio. I highly recommend following the safety instructions on the bag of concrete. Pouring dry concrete really kicks up a lot of dust. A mask, eye protection, and some gloves are pretty cheap and easy to use if you plan ahead. I bought this mixing paddle that you can chuck in a 1/2-inch drill to mix your concrete. This made the job pretty easy, but there are a few things to note. My aging cordless drill struggled to keep up as the volume of concrete got higher in the bucket. I blew through both of my batteries mixing just 1 bucket of concrete. This was definitely pushing the limits of my little Bosch drill. A corded drill would be a much better choice for this application. Something that I discovered after I filmed this video is that leaving the paddle in the bucket when adding more dry concrete makes it easier to start mixing. This works better compared to having to plunge through the dry concrete that was just poured in. Okay, I'm happy with my mix. Now it's time to set the eye bolt. I'm wiggling it around to make the concrete settle between the washers and the bolt and purge any air pockets that I might have created when I pushed the bolt in. Now that it feels pretty good, I'm just going to make some minor adjustments so the eye of the bolt is centered in the bucket. I forgot to smooth out the surface of the concrete before putting the bolt in. This isn't really a big deal because it doesn't need to be visually appealing and it isn't a surface being used to support anything above it. I'll just smooth it out with a gloved hand to give it a reasonable looking finish. Okay, let's get to the hardware and accessories. I got this nice little anchor buoy that I'll attach to my rope. The rope that I got is 3/8-inch double braided nylon with a stainless steel thimble at the end to protect the rope where it attaches to the chain. In addition to the regular shackles that you see here, I also got one that has a swivel built in. The swivel prevents the anchor chain from twisting and becoming shorter. See how it gets shorter and shorter as I twist it? Having a swivel on there will prevent that from happening. The swivel that I have uses a little cotter pin to retain the main pin. I'm going to attach the chain now. When I put the cotter pin back in, I'm going to bend the legs so that the pointy ends don't stick out and poke someone if they were to step on it or kick it by accident. Now I'll use a regular shackle to attach the rope to the swivel. These shackles have a pin that screws in place. I'm going to use a pick tool as a lever to tighten the pin down. I'm also going to orient this so that the round part of the shackle is what comes into contact with the thimble on the rope. It's been a few days and my concrete is looking pretty good. I'm going to attach the anchor chain to the eye bolt on the anchor with another shackle. Your length of chain will be dependent on your specific scenario. I'm using a small 2-foot length because I'm going to be anchoring an inflatable float in water that isn't very deep. I'm basically using the chain to get my anchor rope away from the bucket so that it doesn't end up rubbing on something. Okay, cool, this thing feels solid. I mixed a second bucket off camera and it ended up being a little more full because I didn't precisely measure how much concrete I used from the bag that I divided in half. On this one, the side of the bucket started to split. I decided to put that bucket into another bucket in case the first one decided to totally give way. Everything held together though, and I removed the second bucket after it dried. Okay, I'm ready to set my anchors. I ended up cutting the handles off the buckets because I figured they would end up just rusting in the water. When dropping the anchor off the boat, I explicitly get all of the excess rope out of the boat so that it can't snag me or someone else as I toss the anchor in. Just to reiterate, I'm not an expert. Seek out professional help if you need it. Alright, well that's it. If you found this video useful, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.